The old saying is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. In our family, we always kind of joked a little bit that it was actually a nut that didn't fall far from the tree. And if you knew my parents, you understand that. But anyhow, a couple years back, I would go to a place called Green Acres here in Mason, and it's a memory care facility. And I would go a couple times a month and do a devotional. And I know some of you have heard this story, and I'm sorry if you have to hear it again. But I would go a couple times a month, and I would do a short Sunday afternoon devotional. It just so happens that after I did one of the devotionals, one of the women came up to me and said, "I used to love coming to your church." And I said, "Oh, the one here in Mason?" She said, "No." I said, "In Fowlerville?" She said, "No." I said, "Okay, well, those are the only places where I've been a pastor. Where was it?" And she said, "It was in Clare, the Brown Corners Church." I said, "Oh, that's the church where my brother was a pastor." And she said, "No, it was you." I said, "Okay. So when was that?" And she said, "Oh, that would have been in about 1953 or 1954. I said, "Oh, okay. That's when my father was a pastor there." Because you see, my father was a pastor of Brown Corners Church up between Clare and Harrison from 52 to 57. And I realize I've got my dad's hairline. I'm beginning to get his voice. He always complained about how easily he could lose his voice and how weak his voice was. Quite frankly, I am a chip off the old block. And that is, if he's the rock that I was chipped off of. Those of you who are on Facebook, if you look on my Facebook, you can see the senior pictures I have posted there. I've got my father and my mother posted there, their senior pictures from 1941 in Camden Frontier High School down near Hillsdale. But I also have my senior picture, and if you look at me, you can see that I really am a chip off the old block, or blocks, so to speak. But we're talking about Bible rocks, not me, right? Well, Isaiah 51 says this. It says, "Consider the rock from which you were cut. Consider the quarry from which you were cut." As a Christ follower, or the other term that's quite often used is Christian, which literally means little Christ, I am supposed to be basically a chip off the old block. And in Isaiah 51, it's saying, consider the fact that you were cut from God. You are part of God. Consider the quarry from which you were cut. Now, what quarry would that be? As I was thinking about that, I thought maybe the best way to understand the quarry aspect of this is to understand that all of us who are Christ followers are all chipped off the old block. And so in a sense, we are the quarry where the source of us comes, and that's God, through Christ the rock. But when it's talking about consider the rock from which you were cut, that means whatever you do, wherever you go, consider where you came from. When I was growing up, I used to consider what it meant to be my father's son. Now, I still consider what it is to be my father's son, but it also means to consider that I'm God's. And not only does what I say and what I do have an impact on people's perception of God, it also has an effect on the rest of the quarry. So, Isaiah 51, verse 1, consider the rock from which you were cut. Consider the quarry from which you were cut. God bless.